What do you say, guys? Welcome to the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. And tonight we're going to figure out with the rest of you what's going on with the College Football Playoff Committee, where they see Alabama. Lots happened since last week, but only one team ahead of Alabama lost. Now, a lot's going to change with Championship Saturday coming, and Alabama finally gets that matchup with Georgia that we have all been waiting for. Hey, one of the things that we're waiting for you, maybe or maybe not, is to be part of the channel. I know a lot of you guys are, and if you are, roll tide, thank you. And if not, then it's easy to do. Please like and subscribe, and let's talk all about the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right, look at that intro. Roll Tide, everybody. I'm still on cloud nine with my partner, Chad Anderson, who's a little under the weather right now. I'm Mick Gillispie, and we appreciate you guys being here. We're going to wait on this committee, Chad, and we're going to see if anything changes with the college football playoff rankings. Obviously, where Ohio State is intriguing to me. And the reason why is because they're out of it. But is the committee going to put them ahead of teams like Alabama that are still in it? Or are they going to play semantics and have them, in the top 5 or whatever, maybe even a placeholder going into this weekend where you got Oregon and Washington and you got Alabama against Georgia and Florida State against Louisville, who lost to Kentucky. So much going on, man. What's up?
Man, yeah, I appreciate, by the way, going back to Saturday night, I saw for the first time when Mick retweeted the intro to the post-game show. That was the first time I'd gone back and watched it. I was a little fired up. So
yeah, well, you deserve it, man.
That's a quick 10 seconds of what it's like to watch a game with me. When
loved it.
Yeah. So no, I mean,
I'm. Well, hold on. Have you seen all the other videos of people screaming and stuff? So you're actually kind of right there with the rest of everybody. You're a lot more normal than some people would lead you to believe. My wife.
Yeah.
Saying any names here, but
I will. I love stuff. I'm sitting here watching the screen in front of me, getting ready for the show, and these questions piss me off because they're already going, how far will Ohio State fall? So they're already kind of zeroing in on what Ohio State's doing. It's like, it doesn't matter, right? Like they're out. They're completely out. Even if Michigan lost to Iowa, Michigan would have beaten Ohio State. So if you're trying to get a Big Ten team in there, Ohio State's out. Like, there should be 8 seconds spent on Ohio State tonight. And that is to say, Ohio State lost to Michigan and there they are at number whatever it is. And instead, it's actually one of the crawlers on the bottom of the screen there. I'm interested to see what they do with Florida State. First game without Jordan Travis and Rhoda Baker being the quarterback. They got a test on Saturday night against Louisville coming up. So I'm interested to see what that looks like and just kind of some of the commentary around that. I still don't get Oregon, man. We're going to see the rankings, and Oregon will probably only have one top 25 victory. Texas will have one, which is Alabama, and Alabama's going to have 3. So I don't think you're going to see much change. I think we're all going to get pissed off here in about 10 minutes because I think Ohio State's going to stay ahead of Alabama. And you almost wonder, I don't know because we've never sat in that room. But what's the committee think? Do they have future agendas is my point. Do they sit around and go, okay, well, we got to protect ourselves here. So let's put Ohio State at 7 and Alabama at 8. That way it's one extra spot they would have to jump, and it helps our argument for next week in case it comes down to Bama and Florida State and Oregon and Texas, like we can just say, well, Alabama was kind of too far down to be able to jump that high. I don't know, but I do get curious to know, how some of those discussions go and take place. So we'll see. But I'm not hopeful tonight. I don't mean to be all negative Nelly here, but I'm not hopeful. They haven't shown Alabama any love yet this year.
Yeah, look, I get that too. I mean, it is frustrating to kind of see where things have fallen so far, because Alabama has won every single game since Texas. They fell backwards when they didn't play well at South Florida, but you're talking about a different team right now. Jalen Milroe is one of the best players in college football. He's amongst the Heisman Trophy contenders all of a sudden. He probably won't even get the invite to New York, but I'll tell you what, he's come on so strong that if he did, it would not shock me, and I probably wouldn't shock a lot of you guys. This guy's come a great distance as Alabama's quarterback. The defense has been solid this year. They've played a tough schedule and they've won. Texas got them at the beginning of the season, but this is a different Alabama team. And, it has been pretty frustrating to see where this committee has kept Alabama at number 8. Now, we saw the coaches and we saw the AP. Now, but what we have kind of seen over the years is that these guys don't care about those polls. So you might see some movement. And what we're looking for tonight, Chad, in my opinion, is we're just going to try to get a hint of what's going on as far as that movement is concerned.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I was also kind of going through, because here's the conspiracy theorist of myself. They're rolling the rankings now.
Right.
Kansas State actually stayed in the top 25. So that gives Texas 2 top 25 wins. That's kind of a big deal when you start laying out the resume. Kansas State loses at home in the snow to Iowa State. They stay in the top 25 at 8-4. Tennessee held for Alabama. They're at 21 right now. I started going in, Mick, and looking at, where is everyone on the committee? Where are they from? What affiliations do they have? Where is their history? And it's kind of interesting. You've got the University of Michigan athletics director on here. You've got Chris Alt, who's a longtime Nevada, the Reno guy, head coach there. Mitch Barnhart's the athletics director at Kentucky. Corrigan is the AD at NC State. So he's the leader of this whole committee. So ACC and Florida State could be a very controversial topic coming up. Ole Miss 11, LSU 13. That didn't change. This is what I had coming into today. This is what I would have done.
Okay.
That's why I would. Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State. I give them the undefeated benefit of the doubt. Texas and Bama have better resumes.
Look at where Oregon is.
Oregon doesn't have a good resume. They don't. They just don't have a good resume. I think Ole Miss is better than Penn State and Missouri. If you put Ole Miss on the field, who has better wins than Penn State with the same amount of losses to 2 top 8 teams, who would win, Ole Miss or Penn State?
Right.
Ole Miss would win that game. And I think Ole Miss would beat Missouri as well. Now, this was my projection as to what I think they would actually do. And we'll see. We'll leave this up if that's okay, Mick, for a second.
Yeah, we'll do.
If this turns out correct. This is what I predicted the committee to do. So Penn State coming in at 10, that's accurate. They just popped up on the screen. Yeah, I know, Adam. No way Oregon is 8. Like, Adam's over here already talking, and he's chirping in my ear already to get the night started. I know they're not going to be 8, Adam. I'm saying they don't deserve to be 5.
This is your Pat. You say in your mind.
This is what I think on the screen here. This is what I think the committee is going to do.
Okay, let's see what you got here.
Missouri is in at 9. JM 12 Green thinks LSU would whip Ole Miss now. I don't know, man.
Who?
He thinks LSU would whip Ole Miss today.
Oh, I don't know. They played and it was close.
Bama's back to 8. Or back to, I say, still at 8.
Yeah, which to me, this is just it's garbage, man. I mean, it's complete garbage.
Setting it up for next week is the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that you're now asking a team to climb 4 spots. Wow, they left Texas at 7.
What is it about Oregon that these guys are in love with so much?
I don't know. I think Patrick Nix has naked pictures of Boo Corrigan's wife or something. Like, I don't understand why Oregon is just the Bama fans need Oregon to, well, they haven't announced Ohio State yet, Adam. And so quick reminder for those of you here joining us, this is what I thought the committee would do, but I'm wrong because Ohio State hasn't been announced yet. Texas is actually 7. So don't get that confused. I know we had that last week, and that's why I changed the header this week to make sure it wasn't as confusing. But Texas is 7. I don't know why they love Oregon, though.
I don't either. Like, I guess I don't know. I had a friend that lives in Arizona tell me today that all you hear about out there in the media is how great Oregon is. And Oregon does have like that. They have taken over for USC as the number one, fan base out on the West Coast, college football wise. It's those two schools to me that garner the most attention because they actually have the biggest fan bases. Yeah. So but the thing about it to me is, why have Ohio State ahead of anybody when they can't? There's no scenario where they're going to be in the college football playoff.
So Ohio State is 6. Ohio State is 6. And it's supposed to be a clean reshuffle every week. Like, you're almost not supposed to talk about what happened the week before. You don't even look at those rankings, and that's BS. I don't buy into that at all. Bama fans need Oregon to win Friday night, just FYI, because an undefeated Washington is automatically
guarantee.
That's done. You need Oregon to win, but at this point, I'm so annoyed with Oregon, I kind of just want them to lose because I'm pissed off at them. Oregon at 5, so that makes the rest pretty easy. Unless they flip Michigan and Georgia. Unless they do that. I don't see how they can. But who knows? I mean, just beat the number 6 team. See, and this is where it's so frustrating, Mick, because the committee can now rely on this 3-spot gap between Oregon and Alabama to say Bama's win over Georgia was impressive, assuming it happens, but it wasn't enough to overtake Oregon,
right,
and jump 3 spots. Florida State is 4. That's the one we need. That's the most possible.
Right.
Florida State, Louisville. Like, what kind of hypothetically, while they sit here and banter, what kind of revolt would there be, Mick? Like, what would the backlash be if the SEC champion got left out?
Well, and I've
12-1 Georgia got left out.
Yeah. 12, the loser of that game's out because there's too many other conference champions that are going to be in, right? Michigan's going to be undefeated.
Washington, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. And so, it's like that criteria has been kind of at the top of their list. There's just no room here for a team that doesn't win a conference championship not to be in there. So we're thinking Alabama's going to beat Georgia. And I feel like they're keeping Alabama at 8th to be able to keep Alabama out. But the momentum of winning a game over Georgia, who hasn't lost since Alabama beat them in 2021, 29 straight games, it would be really difficult for them not to put Alabama in. But the scenario that keeps Alabama out, in my mind, Florida State wins, Washington wins, Michigan wins, and Texas wins. Then it's going to come down to Texas and Alabama, and they got the win over Alabama. That's the one that worries me, because I agree with you. I think if Oregon wins, then you got Texas, Alabama, and Oregon, who would all have one loss, and then it kind of mucks it up a little bit. So it's not necessarily Alabama against Texas; it's Alabama against Texas and Oregon.
I think this is all a coup. This is all an absolute coup. Because if Alabama's roadblocked by Texas, they can't get by Texas with that head-to-head lingering. They just can't. And I know I don't disagree that Alabama would beat Texas today. It's a different team. Alabama beat Texas today. Texas has actually played a little bit worse. I know they smoked Texas Tech, but they struggled with TCU. They struggled with Iowa State. They struggled with Houston. That's when Ewers got hurt.
Right.
They went to overtime against Kansas State, and that was with a backup, though, to be fair. So I just look at it and go, they're just blocking it. I don't see where this committee is going to ever give Alabama the nod over Texas, even if they beat Georgia.
Well, here's what's got to happen, and Paul Feinbaum actually started this. He's already saying that it would be ridiculous not to have the SEC champ in the college football playoff. And the other thing, and you've made this point, and I'm going to reiterate this point as well, is that they should not hold it against Alabama for going out there and playing a game like this. Who did Michigan play? Who was there? What was their game? Where did they go and play?
Carolina, UNLV, Hawaii.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, those are all 3 cupcake games. You should not be punished for going out and playing a tough schedule. And Alabama went to South Florida, and they didn't come to Tuscaloosa last year. Don't forget that.
Here's Oregon's out of conference, and I've hit on this quite a bit. Portland State, Texas Tech, and Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 games. It's terrible. Just terrible. I'm more upset. Like, if you said, hey, Bama can't get in over Texas, I could live with that. That's logical. It makes sense. I get it. Bama just happened to catch an unlucky break that the one year they scheduled, they schedule out of conference opponents every year. But the one year that it bit them, where they ended up needing that team to be out of the way to make the playoff, it didn't work out for them. But I just don't get Oregon. I still don't get Oregon.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me, because nothing here with Oregon, with their out of conference. Like, Bama should have just scheduled Portland State. They should have just gone that route and made it simple.
Well, and look, Iceman's like, let's get our Sugar Bowl tickets. It is up to the conference to flex their muscle. The only thing Alabama should be worrying about right now is beating Georgia. The conference, the SEC conference, better get in there and make sure that when Alabama beats Georgia, that they get in. And it would be so nice if Louisville beat Florida State. But I mean, they couldn't even beat Kentucky at home, and they're going to go beat Florida State. So I mean, don't hold your breath. Some of these conferences, like the Big Ten, to have that Iowa team playing for a championship I think that's the biggest joke of all. They're gonna end up getting shut out. It's gonna be like 60-0 or something. I mean, they're so terrible.
I'm listening to Kirk here too, but if I'm Ohio State, how much does it suck? How much does it suck if you're Ohio State, right? To be in the Big Ten East. because the Big Ten West is such a joke. One, your schedule, you run through it, no problem. You'd be undefeated. And then you get Michigan on neutral field.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand, like if you're Ohio State, that's who I would be so annoyed at just that, because their season ended last week. I still don't, there's just no chance at all for them.
No, they're not in. They're not in, and that's that.
Yeah. It's I don't know, it's mind-boggling to me. The Oregon thing I still can't figure out. They're everything about them, their strength of record, their strength of schedule, it's all below Alabama and below Texas. Like everything. And so I just don't understand that if you put it on paper and look at it, everything Alabama has is better than the 8th spot in this poll. And
yeah,
it just doesn't add up to me.
All right, I'm going to pop it up here. I mean, we've talked about it, but here it is.
Adam, you can't have a top 15 defense against bad competition. Like, that's fine. Top 15 defense, but it's bad competition.
Well, Ohio State's a placeholder. But what worries me is, again, are you going to take out Oregon? Could Oregon possibly not go up if they beat Washington?
Well, let's just run through some scenarios. Like, we don't really care if Georgia wins. We don't really care, right? Like the playoff can do whatever the playoff wants to do.
Right.
So let's just assume every scenario here is assuming Alabama wins against Georgia. So if Alabama does beat, I mean, this is the Bama Tailgate channel. So if Bama beats Georgia, then
that's what we do here.
Yeah. So you got Michigan is 1. Michigan's not losing to Iowa. Quick side, funny note. Do you know that Iowa's team total in the first half is half a point against Michigan?
Yeah. No, I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. They suck.
Half a point. Did you know that their team total in the second half is half a point? Like, basically, Vegas is saying, we dare Iowa to score. We dare you to bet on Iowa scoring, which I think they'll be able to grab a field goal. Why not? But if you look at, let's see, I'm trying to pull up. What's crazy too is, and Kirk was just saying this, is that people say, what if Alabama shocked the world and beat Georgia? Like, I don't see that as shocking the world. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this then. And guys, those of you that are, kind of hanging out with us, maybe we're the only ones that see the butt whooping that's coming to Georgia coming. You know what I'm saying? Maybe everybody else just thinks that Alabama's going to lose this game and it doesn't even matter. Maybe they're looking at Alabama like we're looking at Iowa, or we're looking at, one of these other places. So, maybe that's it, and maybe when they're shocked like Auburn was on that last play, well, not the last play, but the play, 4th and 31, which, by the way, Daniel Moore is doing the print. He heard us.
Is he?
Yep. Yeah. NewLifeArt.com, Bama Tailgate, 25% off your orders. You got to do it now, though. Yeah, he announced today he's doing it, 4th and 31. But maybe, yeah, I mean, maybe, like right here, like Cam said, maybe everyone's eating all the rat poison. Georgia's eating the rat poison, and they just think that, like, they've forgotten that Alabama beats Georgia. And then when that happens, you put Alabama in at number 4 no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Like, Georgia's out and Alabama goes in. Like, they probably say, hey, you know what? They won. They're the SEC champ. The SEC has won all of these championships. They have the toughest conference. They're going in. And somebody else is going to get left out. And honestly, I feel like the team that you look at these 7 teams, because Ohio State being at number 6 isn't just a joke. It's just so ridiculous. But the fact that they're there, it's a placeholder. The crazy thing is why the Big Ten has had so much power and they're so overrated. And now all of a sudden, like Oregon and Washington, aren't they going to that conference?
Yeah.
So they're getting the benefit of the doubt of the bull crap, the Big Ten. And so maybe that's why, because I don't get this either.
So this is updated. This is fresh. Strength. We're looking at, let me turn this off. We're looking at currently the strength of record and strength of schedule, because that plays into the committee's decisions. And they use, though, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't say in the footnotes which strength of schedule and strength of record, because you can get different formulas that come up with, like, there's not one strength of schedule formula,
right?
One strength of record formula. You can get variations of it. And so I'm assuming this is ESPN's, and that's what the committee uses, which is kind of interesting as well. I would always, like, why wouldn't you use a third party like Sagarin or something?
Right.
I don't even know what Sagarin's rankings are, but so if you look at the teams that are in discussion here, Oregon strength of record is 9. Strength of schedule is 62. Texas strength of record is 6, which is better than Oregon. Texas strength of schedule is 13, which is light years ahead of Oregon.
Right.
Light years ahead of Oregon. Texas's only loss is to number, who is that? 12, Oklahoma. Oregon's only loss is to number 3, Washington. So your losses aren't that far off. It's not like Texas got shocked by Iowa State, who's unranked and 6-6.
Right.
Texas lost in a rivalry game to the 12th best team in the country, and their strength of schedule's significantly better, but you've got them behind Oregon and Ohio State.
Right.
I don't even talk about Ohio State because they can't play anymore until the bowl game and they're done. So Alabama, strength of record is 7. Strength of schedule is 31. So Alabama's strength of record is better than Oregon, 1 worse than Texas.
Mm-hmm.
If it's half of Oregon's strength of schedule, that means it's twice as hard. Do a little inverted math for you there. So, but it's not as good as Texas's. So that's why when I put mine up there earlier, based on these, and even if you want to say eye test and Alabama and Auburn, I get it. But before the Iron Bowl, Alabama was kicking people's ass and they weren't moving. Okay. So don't give me eye test, because Alabama was wearing it out with the eye test, because if that was the case, they would have been higher and then you barely beat Auburn and then you would move them lower.
Right.
8 the entire time.
Yeah. Hopefully those same officials are at the Florida State game or the Texas game. I'm thinking that Texas could be the team that has those guys show up, and that would be because the Big 12 would not want them to win, just because they're leaving the conference. You wouldn't want them to win your conference the last time. And, look, you've seen it, you can change 6 or 7 plays in a game and change the outcome of a game.
Sure.
Who knows? Who knows really what it's going to come down to? But if Alabama wins and they win the SEC, I just think, how could you keep the SEC out over any of these conferences?
Well, and so that's the other piece of it that we haven't even talked about. If you look at this, the SEC has 5 teams in the top 13.
Yeah.
How do you have 5 teams in the top 13, but you say the conference isn't good enough to have a representative?
But do you think the strength of a win over Georgia catapults you? See, my thing is, I think the combination of the strength of a win over Georgia and the strength of the SEC and their ability to politic is going to get them in. Has to. But with this, when I see this crap, I'm going, okay, you're telling me Ohio State's ranked higher than Alabama, and they just lost to Michigan. And I mean, I watched the game, I don't know. I just don't think they're better than Alabama or Texas.
No.
And they can't get in anyway. Like, why even waste our time putting Ohio State in? I mean, don't you think that they ought to just move them out of the way? Missouri can't get in, and they might as well have 10 losses. They're not getting in.
Just slot Ohio State to 8. I do think that they put them at 6 because it may have an impact on your bowl situation. Now, because that could determine a little bit of like bowl selection and whatnot, and who gets to pick first, or if you have a preference or something like that. Maybe that's it. It doesn't matter. But the part that does piss me off about it is they've separated Bama and Oregon just enough to make it really, really, really hard for Alabama, even with a win over Georgia, to leapfrog a team that would have beaten number 3 Washington. And that's the part that's frustrating in this, is because Alabama's just stuck right there. Did you know Alabama, until this past Saturday, all season long, not one team ahead of Alabama in the rankings had lost until this past Saturday when Ohio State lost to Michigan?
I know, it's crazy, huh?
Think about that. Like early in the year, all throughout the year, nobody ahead of Alabama lost at any point until Ohio State and Michigan played. And that's it.
It's the craziest year. And I'm wondering if, and I hope this isn't the case, I hope that having the NIL and the transfer portal doesn't turn it into super teams that are going to win all the games unless they play each other. And that's because part of what made college football great is that, any given Saturday.
I'm trying to see. Yeah. So in these scenarios, again, for Bama fans.
I love this, by the way. Look at Cam writing. Oregon has dominated all year. You're right, Cam.
Oregon has dominated all year.
Okay. Dominated what?
They beat Colorado and Stanford, who are the bottom. Their biggest one, the one that stands out the most, because they didn't destroy USC, they didn't destroy Washington State. They've had plenty of like impressive, just complete games, but the one that really sticks out that's just got everybody is Utah. They went when game day was at Utah. They went to Salt Lake City, and they boat raced them.
Right. There's a guy named Chris Farley, and he used to say, "Lottie freaking da." Remember him?
Yes.
Lived in a van down by the river.
Yeah, I love that guy.
See, he's still the greatest.
See, and
Jay Coker asked me. I asked Jay Coker that. He said, "If he wasn't fat, would he be as funny?" I said, yes, he would be. He still would be.
He's still
Mick Foley instead of Matt Foley. I get it, though. I get it.
I see a lot of comments from different people about the Arkansas game in here. What sucks about the Arkansas game is the final score.
Right.
Alabama dominated the first 3 quarters of that game, and then they let them just kind of hang around. And we talked about it.
I know.
I hated that game. I hated it.
Yeah, you did.
You were coming back from the win at A&M, and you had Tennessee on deck. I hated that win. It was a miserable spot for Alabama.
Yeah. I don't know, man. We might need we need a little bit of help. As much as you hate it, we got to pull for Oregon. We need Washington out.
Yep.
And if that happens and Bama beats Georgia, it's going to come down to conference versus conference for the last spot. Because I could see Michigan and Florida State. I don't know. I mean, and then Texas, and that kind of muddies the Texas. They're all saying, well, you can't get in over Texas. But if you put them in over Oregon and then had a Texas-Oregon battle, then Alabama gets in. I just think that this is the thing that I keep coming back to is that it's very difficult to keep the SEC out of the college football playoff because we own it. Like it ought to be called some years, Chad.
It's the SEC Invitational.
Some years, and you guys know what I'm talking about. The SEC championship game is tougher than the national championship game. 2008,
yeah,
2009.
Yep.
Think about it. I mean, how many years does it come? Yeah, right. It comes down to it. And those teams have been getting lucky anyway that they had Alabama or somebody else to beat, so that they could go in there and get embarrassed in the championship game that they didn't even belong in.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen when we get into this 12-team playoff is it's going to look like baseball, which the SEC dominates. And then they try to put all the teams in the SEC on one side of the bracket so that we don't have Alabama and LSU playing each other like they did in 97. So that we don't have Arkansas against Ole Miss. Sometimes there's so many teams that get into the baseball tournament that they can't do that. They're going to have to do the same thing because it's going to come down to Alabama and Georgia and games like that, Alabama, LSU, for the championship a lot. And what the committee did last year, putting in TCU, was disgusting, leaving Alabama out, in my opinion, because they tell you that it's supposed to be the 4 best teams, and Alabama last year was one of the 4 best teams, and we had the worst championship game ever. It was awful.
It was bad.
And Michigan, you know what? And Michigan and Michigan and the Big Ten are so damn overrated. They haven't won. What year was it that Ohio State won? 2014. They haven't won a championship since then.
Yeah.
But every year we got to go in and hear about how good Ohio State and Michigan are. If they played the SEC schedule, if they played Alabama and Georgia and LSU and some of these other games that, Auburn, let them go and play at Jordan-Hare Stadium on a Saturday night with that officiating crew. Let them go play against Tennessee. Let them. They're playing Iowa, who the over-under on them scoring in the first and second half is a half a point.
Yeah.
You can't compare those two things.
Yeah. Well, and before that, remember so Ohio State won it in 14. The last Big Ten team to win it before that was Ohio State in 2002. They beat Miami in overtime on the PI. And then you go to before that, and it was 97 when Michigan split it with Washington State. And then prior to that, man, what would it have been? The 60s, 70s?
Yeah.
But what's crazy, too, when you bring that up and think about it for a quick second, the SEC's actually spread the love a little bit. Bama, Georgia, and Auburn have all won national championships, and Tennessee. If you go back in the last 25 years, Bama, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, and Florida. Yeah. I forget Florida.
And Florida. That's 5.
Teams. Yeah, 5 different teams have won the national championship.
Right, and multiple championships.
Yeah, but Penn State. I forgot Penn State. Didn't they win one with Joe Pa like in the 80s?
But it wasn't. It wasn't the. What year are you starting this at?
I'm just saying. I'm just basically demonstrating the Big Ten and how it's really not this class of conference of dominant teams, because it's always Ohio State, Michigan, and you sprinkle in I think Penn State has 2 national championships? 3 national not many.
What year? 98 was Tennessee, and 97 was Nebraska.
Yeah, I said Michigan and Washington State. Michigan beat Wazoo. They split it with Nebraska.
I wish Nebraska still ran the option.
Yeah,
that was actually a pretty fun team. But yeah, I mean,
who's the 6th SEC team? I see some comments. I'm just kind of reading through those. There's 5 different teams have won it.
Let me go get my helmet set here so we can have like a prop. Hold on.
Are you, man? Mick wants to give the old visual demonstration here. The thing is that previous years, obviously, you're not supposed to impact the decision making for this year. Every year is a new year. But I'll tell you what, looking at this, with Oregon being at 5, I'm more convinced, Mick, that Alabama. Now you put your earpiece in. I'm more convinced that Alabama would have a better shot at this point of jumping Texas than they would Oregon. They'd have a better shot at that argument the way it's set up.
All right, Tennessee 1-1, Florida, Georgia.
Tennessee was 98, Georgia's 20, 21, and 21 and 22.
All right.
Florida was 06 and 08.
LSU.
Oh, I LSU. Sorry, that was the 16. My bad. Yeah, LSU's won it. They won it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even see Florida up here. Yeah, Florida won it a bunch of times.
06, well, 96, 06, 08.
Right.
LSU won it 03, 07, and 19. I keep forgetting about
these guys won.
They won it in 10.
And then these guys won it a lot.
Yeah, they won.
I'm gonna have to get a new set. Actually, just my son's, but it's out in the studio for my enjoyment.
Yeah. Look
at it's got the smoky gray Tennessee hat. Do you have these? You ever seen these before?
I have seen them. That's funny. Yeah. That's like but the only good thing I'm at in life is quoting you the year that somebody won a national championship. That's like that's my special talent, is telling you what year somebody won a title.
Yeah, no, that was good.
About it. That's all I got going.
So I don't know. I mean, like the SEC power brokers better get working, unless Georgia wins, and then
look at this. This one bothers me. Why is Penn State a key win? Like, why do we keep praising Penn State? I don't know what you do with them. They do beat teams they're supposed to beat, but they're never even close to the other games. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
I think James Franklin, what's he beaten Ohio State and Michigan one time in his career?
Yeah, and I like him a lot, but I mean, he's just not getting it done. I mean,
he's good at Vanderbilt, but he's not good at Penn State.
Yeah. He was good at Vanderbilt.
He's very good at back-to-back 9-win seasons. Maybe they had a 10-win season in there.
He's really the only guy that has won there. All right, so what's next? So basically what we're saying is that if Alabama beats Georgia and Washington loses to Oregon, we feel like Alabama's going to get one of the 2 spots for the teams that have lost, because Michigan's playing. Michigan shouldn't even have to play that game. I mean,
it really is a joke.
Yeah, like what's like. I mean, I'm impressed that Iowa ended up with 10 wins. Like, it's crazy, but they're gonna lose.
And really, they should have had 11 because they had no business losing to Minnesota.
Yeah,
in Iowa City.
Right.
Yeah, they had no reason to lose that game. Imagine Iowa being 11-1 right now.
Yeah.
Where would they be ranked?
I don't know, but they'd have no chance.
They'd have no chance, but where would they be ranked? That would be hilarious to debate that, because right now they're 16. If they were 11-1, they'd have to be 9, right?
Yeah. You got Michigan in. Obviously, we think Alabama's going to beat Georgia. And if Georgia wins, and all this is for nothing. Washington and Oregon, that's Friday night. So that'll give us something to watch on Friday night.
Pull for Oregon.
And then Florida State and Louisville after Alabama plays.
Yes. And Texas and Oklahoma State before Alabama plays.
Yeah, right.
So you're doing the L's Saturday night. And just so everybody can kind of see, hopefully you do by now anyway. We've talked about this quite a bit, but Georgia would fall. Bama would jump over Georgia. They would surpass them. So Michigan would be 1. And then you'd have, if Oregon beats Washington, which we all are assuming they will, they're 9.5-point favorites last I saw. But Michigan would be the only undefeated team in that case, other than potentially Washington and Florida State. But you would have Bama fans pulling for Oregon, Louisville, and Oklahoma State. If Louisville or Oklahoma State win, it doesn't matter what else happens. Louisville or Oak State, one of those two teams win, doesn't matter. Oregon wins, and none of the other happens, and you got an argument. And I love all the confidence in these comments, man. I have no confidence in this committee. I see what they're doing and what they've done. I have zero confidence in any of this. Do you think Greg Sankey called Paul Feinbaum this week and said, "Hey, go ahead and get it stirred up on the airwaves"?
No, but I think that Paul Feinbaum's paid by the SEC and he senses this. And one thing that I've noticed about him is that he is really political, and that some of the things that he says are to benefit people he likes and things that are his causes to benefit, especially since he got the ESPN. So crank it up. This is one where I'm with you, man. I'm not the biggest Paul Feinbaum guy, but all of that helps now, because there's people like Aaron Murray and there's people that are going to be against the SEC that want Alabama out, that would just be elated if they beat Georgia and no SEC team got in. But can you imagine a playoff with Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas, and no Alabama or Georgia?
No.
Lance Taylor, who's on the next round, says that if Alabama wins, he could see Alabama and Georgia getting in. I see no scenario where that happens.
Well, it could. You would just need more help. Like, what if Louisville and Louisville and Oklahoma State beat Florida State and Texas?
All right. Well, yeah, let's go this. What would be the most chaotic part of this? Is there any scenario where Ohio State could get back in?
I don't see it. I mean, well, let me back up. So Ohio State has to climb 2 spots without playing. That's the tough part. They have to climb 2 without playing.
Right. And that never, it doesn't happen like that.
And so they need, and Oregon and Washington are already ahead of them and they play each other. So one of those teams is going to be in. Alabama and Georgia play each other. If Bama wins, they're going to leap Ohio State. If Georgia wins, they're already ahead. So that's 2 spots taken. So you would need Florida State to lose and Oklahoma State to beat Texas. That would be interesting if you had that. So, and I guess maybe Michigan could lose. But if you had those a couple of spots there, I don't know. I don't see how that's possible. Because if Michigan somehow lost to Iowa, you can't move Michigan below Ohio State, can you? Like, I don't see
Michigan. There's no. Well,
can
you imagine that? I mean, you talk about absolute chaos. If Michigan lost to Iowa, that would be the most chaotic. But I put that as like 90. I mean, that's about as much of a lock as a football game in a championship I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's just going to get your whooping.
Right.
You're just going to get the medicine, because that's what Michigan's going to give them, the elixir. That's going to be a lot of elixir in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I look at it and think, if you want Ohio State in, I don't know how you do it, because if Georgia and Washington, just say that, would occupy 2 spots. Michigan would have to lose. Florida State would have to lose. Texas would have to lose. Maybe if all 3 lost. Michigan, Florida State, and Texas all lost. Okay.
What's the logic for keeping Alabama 8th? Take off the the Alabama sweat hoodie and think about this as like if you were really impartial on the committee, because this is tough for me, Chad. I just don't understand why they're 8th. I just don't see them as an 8th best team. I mean,
look, I gave you all the stats earlier. That's my point. I gave you the stats earlier to oppose Oregon. And I'm more arguing even for Texas over Oregon here. Like, I don't understand the infatuation with Oregon. Because also, if you're the committee and you go, eye test, eye test, eye test. Well, again, two things here.
Hey, hold on. I've got to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Because Tom wants us to figure out what it would take for Auburn to get into the college football playoff. Oh, Tom, it would take a lot of chaos. It would basically take.
I know how it would happen, Tom. I got it. They moved the semifinal to the Birmingham Bowl, and then Auburn would be in the semifinal. Right. That's it.
Oh, man.
They move it. They move it there. You can't say that Oregon's got, in my opinion, this is where I have the disconnect. Their resume is not as good, but you're trying to tell me the eye test is worth 3 slots higher? Like, if the resume is not as good, to me, the best they could be is 1 spot higher.
Right.
And again, don't give me eye tests. So the two things about it is, one, the eye test shouldn't separate you by 3 spots.
Yeah.
Not when you have a much better resume than Oregon.
Yeah.
Here's Texas or Alabama.
Here's Nick. He's saying, hey, remember they lost to Appy State. Honestly, I think they would have a tougher time with Appy State than Iowa.
Yeah, it's more Iowa than it is.
Iowa's not going to be able to move the ball or stop them.
No. Hey,
like they don't do anything well.
Does Iowa have more than 100 yards of offense by the end of the third quarter?
No.
And I say third quarter because the fourth quarter, it could be garbage time. So I don't want to lose that. You know, if Michigan played all out the entire game, they'll be up 35-3 in the fourth quarter.
So you're saying the over-under for them, the over-under for Iowa for each half is a half a point?
For their team total, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. All they'd have to do is just like get lucky.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, you bet.
So Vegas thinks they're going to get shut out.
Yeah, correct. But you bet the over on that, because if you bet the over, like you said, all you need is 1 field goal, and they've got great punters, Mick. They could pin Michigan inside the 5.
Maybe somebody fumbles.
Yeah, they could pin them inside the 5 and grab a safety. I mean, yeah, you're just looking for 1 score, any score.
Yeah.
Here are the updated lines for the weekend. If you're interested in the Hugh Freeze Bowl, New Mexico State is a 10.5-point underdog to number 25 Liberty. That's the Hugh Freeze Bowl there. That's on Friday night as well. Conference USA Championship.
Wow, it's gonna be some good watching.
Yep, that one starts at 6. You just kind of whet the appetite a little bit before the 7 o'clock game.
Well, don't forget about the tailgate show, Chad.
You're right. We'll be
watching. Listen.
I'm already programmed into Saturday when we do the tailgate show. Like I'm trained to say Saturday. So.
Well, you can do both. You just throw us up on your phone and watch the game on your TV, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And well, that's right. We can't even talk about the game during the tailgate show. But yeah, we'll throw some comments in there. We can talk about the games in the comment section. Oregon, Washington, 9.5 points. Oregon a favorite. That's so many points. Total is 66.5. First game this year they played ended 36-33. That was at Washington. That was a game, though, that I was surprised Oregon didn't win the way it was going at the end of the contest. Texas, Mick, opened at 10.5. That thing has jumped to 14.5 now. Longhorns, big favorites. 3 possession favorites there if you're not counting 2-point conversion attempts. So 55.5 the total. You can get some action on Saturday morning if you want with Miami, Ohio, and Toledo. You can get some Mountain West Conference title action with Boise State and UNLV in the afternoon. That could be a little prelude. This one's interesting from a New Year's Six Bowl perspective. SMU, the Ponies, they're playing Tulane. And Tulane's 4.5 on that one. That actually would be a good game. Not going to watch it because be stuck on Bama.
Right.
That'll be a good one. Georgia is up to 6.5, Mick. 6.5 points.
Yeah.
This could be the largest spread in a game since the 2008 SEC championship when the Gators were 10.5-point favorites over Alabama.
I was there. I was there for that one.
We thought we had them.
I did too.
App State plays Troy in the Sun Belt title. Troy 6.5. Saturday night, though, Florida State 2.5-point favorites. That's come down. It opened at 6.5. It's down to 2.5. The money's on the cards. 2.5 totals 48.5, and then Michigan 23.5. Guess what the total is, Mick?
Man, it's probably like 30.
34.5.
Wow.
It's actually the highest total Iowa has been a part of since I believe they said week 5.
That's nuts. Yeah, they suck so bad. Dolomite wants to know the Sun Belt.
That's App State and Troy. Appalachian State goes to Troy. 6.5. Troy's the favorite there. Total.
There you go, Dolomite.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, it's just crazy. Like I just don't. I can't figure out what it is with and how much of this is Vegas. You know, like if you took say Vegas, right, and they put the top, who would be favored if they played each other, right? You put all these teams together and you said, okay, who would be favored if they played each other? Bama's going to be favored against everybody but Georgia.
Maybe Michigan. Maybe. I think the Michigan game would be a pick. But, yeah, I'm with you. Everybody but Georgia. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I see that. But I've kind of always said that really Vegas should be in charge of making the top 25 because they know who the best teams are.
I know. There's no chance that Bama beats Georgia and they're not one of the 4 best teams.
Correct.
So,
you know,
maybe we're looking too much into what this all means because once you beat Georgia and you end that streak, maybe the air of dominance that Alabama should have is back.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a team they've lost 3 games in 2 years. 2 of them were by like last second plays.
Yeah.
The year before that, they lost in the national championship game in the fourth quarter.
They had the lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Heather Diniches of the world who, just absolutely try to make money off of saying stupid stuff that's pointed at Alabama. And I almost feel like that idiocy has kind of gotten to the point now where we're kind of like, hey, like we're the national feel is that Alabama's not that good. You're trying to put basically you're comparing Alabama to itself, right? It's like, well, this team isn't as good as the 2020 team or the 2012 team or the 2011 team or the 2017 team or whatever. You know what, though? They're pretty damn good.
The losses you mentioned, by the way, Bama's had, if you count every season, 21, 22, and 23, Alabama's had 5 losses. And one of them, starting chronological order here, on the road, walk-off field goal at A&M. Okay, that's one. National championship against Georgia. They led in the fourth quarter. It wasn't a 15-point game. It was an 8-point game with a pick 6 at the end. So, yes, it was a 15-point game, but you get my point. An overtime loss with 17 penalties on the road at Tennessee.
No, that was a last-second field goal.
No, not overtime. Last-second field goal. Walk-off field goal. Yeah. Another walk-off field goal. 17 penalties in Neyland. LSU, overtime loss, 2-point conversion attempt.
Right.
And then this year they just got beat. This year's loss was that and the fourth quarter against Georgia.
5 losses. Yeah.
5 losses in 3 seasons, 3 of which were walk-offs. 3 of those were walk-offs.
Yeah.
And it's like the dynasty in this and Nick Saban, he's losing it in Alabama. And 5 losses, 3 years, 3 of them were walk-offs.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Here's the good thing is that Saturday's game is a game that is more than just getting into the college football playoff. It's to win the SEC, and it's to reestablish we never left.
Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of to remind everybody that Georgia just didn't have to play Alabama last year. Right?
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, Alabama beat Georgia in their little national championship team, hammered them.
Pounded them.
Yeah, kicked their ass.
Yep.
And they you know what, like the breaks that we've had this year, we haven't really had a lot of guys get injured. We just didn't have them that season. We lost our 2 best playmakers, and then, you know, obviously it still took all of that to lose. Honestly, the reason why Alabama didn't win that championship game is because there were that group of receivers that came in after the guys, the Ajay Hall type guys.
Yeah.
They didn't take the opportunity to get ready for their chance to get in the game. And when they got the opportunity, we realized they sucked.
Yeah.
And now we're back to where we got great receivers again. All these guys, Isaiah Bond.
0017.
Yeah, I love Kendrick Law. I mean, these guys can play, man. They're good.
This is a great comment.
Jermaine Burton.
That's a good comment.
Yeah, that too, man. And there's Nick, there's so much more to this. It's you lost to 2 of the top 3 players taken in the NFL. I mean, for God's sakes, do you think that Alabama could have a game or 2 to kind of rebuild things?
Yeah, correct.
It took that long to just put new bullets in the gun.
Yeah. Just reload.
Yeah, it's reloaded now.
Yeah. You know what else is sad though? We haven't talked about this. Is this is it before the bowls. Like I always am so surprised at how fast it goes. But here we are, Mick. I mean, we're 4 days away from Bama, Georgia, and that's it. You know, we're done for a few weeks.
Well, we're not done, but football's
well,
done.
You know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be talking on here, win, lose, or draw. But you're right. I mean, it is kind of, I've been on these channels, I didn't own them, but I've been on these channels the years that we've competed for championships, and it's fun. Yeah. Like every day something. Yeah. And then last year was so weird, man. Like it was like, it just felt different,
But imagine if you covered a different team and you weren't always right here at the end.
Man, I had a guy that's so I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want to do that, but I had the guy I used to work for tell me that he wished Alabama would lose more so that more people would come to the site and stuff. And I said, don't ever say that, man.
No.
I want Alabama to just keep on trucking.
Yes.
But that's the difference. When you're in this for the money, it's one thing. When you're in it like us, man, we live this, like when the team loses and it hurts, it stinks.
Yeah. If you don't believe Mick, go back and listen to the first 10 seconds of the postgame show.
I know. Did you see the video? You talk about yours. Did you see the video where the guy, he's like, it's like a cam up here and he's like pacing in front of the TV. And then they find they show like highlights of it, like he's kind of like, go, go, go. And he's screaming and everything. And then finally, like we score and he sounds like you, he takes his shirt off. But that's what happens, man.
My brother was at a friend's house and unexplainably, his friend, when they scored that last touchdown, he didn't freak out. I mean, he was happy. He screamed. He just started taking his clothes off. He didn't know what else to do. He just started taking clothes off. He's just like it's
like
surreal.
soccer.
Yeah, it's surreal. The emotion and the moment and how it gives you a feeling or a reaction that you just kind of never thought was possible.
Yeah, and here's what I'm looking at for Georgia. The problem that they have is that they haven't been in a game since Ohio State last year, where they were up against a team that could beat them. Yeah. And Ohio State didn't believe they could beat them, and they didn't beat them. They didn't play to win.
They lost Harrison too, though.
Yeah, but they just weren't ready to win that game, just like they're not ready to beat Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Alabama's going to be ready to beat them. Like,
Alabama's
no one is scared of them. Like, I keep hearing Auburn say, we're not scared of Alabama. We're not scared of Georgia.
Yeah.
Auburn better be scared of the thumb.
The thumb's coming.
The thumb's coming for you guys.
Thumb's coming. Yeah. Thumb's coming. It's been a long time waiting.
Boop, boop, boop. But I mean, I'm telling you right now, I just think that the way that this team looked on Saturday is not what they're going to look like. Plus, I feel like, too, officiating should be a lot better.
Yeah.
You said it early in that game Saturday. You're like, it's those guys.
It is those
and
guys. You're
right. And they suck. They're the worst officials. And they're just – I'm not even going to say it. I don't want to say anything that starts with an F to describe them.
You don't want to pull a Chad. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. It's just such crap, though.
It is. It really is, man. But luckily, and have they announced the SEC officiating crew?
Yes. No, they haven't, but they did. And this is something that I wanted to bring up. They did announce the broadcast crew for the SEC championship game.
Yeah, Chris Stewart.
No, not Chris Stewart. I love Chris Stewart. I'm glad Chris is on the mic for that. No, I mean TV.
Brad
TV
Gary.
crew. Yeah. Gary's back one more time. I don't know why they put a press release out.
Gary, though. I removed Gary from my life because I'll be there.
So yeah, that's right. Yeah. You don't have to.
Yeah.
One more time, though.
Yeah, you get a little farewell tour with Gary.
One more Gary.
Man, how many times is he going to bring up the Iron Bowl?
I don't know. He's got to be one of the worst. I'm guessing he's one of the worst commentators that they just keep putting on. People used to complain about Howard Cosell, but Cosell was good. Like he was just controversial,
Yeah.
Let's talk to Muhammad Ali, champ. Like he just would call you out. Like he was actually great. Gary just gets on everybody's nerves. Like we had a couple people in the chat that told me that they like Gary.
So I tweeted this last night. I was laying in bed, not feeling great. And I was rewatching the Iron Bowl happened to be coming on again. All right, turn this
Watch this.
Yeah. So I'm watching it. And
did it still piss you off?
The face mask penalty or non-penalty was about to happen, and then it happened. And Gary, this is literally what was said. I tweeted rewatching Iron Bowl, and Gary to Gene. This is Danielson to Gene Steratore. Can they not look up at the scoreboard and see that, Gene? Gene replies, "You can't officiate through the scoreboard, Gary." I'm like, just his comments, like it's not even funny because it's so stupid. Like, what are you talking about, Gary? In what universe? And he said it in such a serious way. Like he was mad.
Yeah.
Danielson was actually mad about that call. And I get it. They blew the call. But he's like, literally, can't they just look at the scoreboard? Like, no, you dumbass.
I know. But you knew when you knew when they called that touchdown back that was your classic makeup call. That was like a tip of the cap to the sideline,
Yeah, absolutely.
How bad were those pass interference calls that they weren't flagging when you rewatched it?
They don't talk about that. I do like Brad Nessler. He's a phenomenal guy. He actually helped me some for a brief moment in college with broadcasting stuff.
I think he's good. I like Brad too.
Super nice guy. I think his voice is great. He reminds me of like your uncle at the holidays, but not the crazy uncle, like kind of the cooler uncle that'll talk sports with you. But even he on some of the stuff, it's like, I don't know if Brad believes what he says all the time or if he kind of just goes with it because that's the direction Gary was in.
Right.
And he doesn't want to show Gary up. I don't know which one it is, but
well, they get to do the ACC next year, right?
Big Ten.
Oh, the Big Ten.
You get Rutgers, Maryland next year.
Yeah, good for them. They'll be that'll be great. I wonder what if this happens? What if they go there and people love them?
Great. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Hilarious.
Keep them. Extend the deal. Extend the contract.
Like you're not going to believe this, but Big Ten fans love Gary. So who gets Gus?
Gus Johnson?
Yeah.
He's staying at Fox. I mean, Fox will still have like Big 10, Big 12 games.
Okay, because I love Gus, man. That's my guy.
Fox doesn't have the SEC or the ACC, but they'll still have their Big 10 and Big 12 contracts.
You can tell who's having fun doing it and who just gets it. People like you would want to hang out with, I
like Joel. That'll be interesting. I don't know the order that they pick, kind of like the whole CBS and ESPN. I don't know.
Oh, there's your balloons.
I don't know why we get this. Do you do that and you're just not telling me?
No, I don't. That's something that you got going on, and
I have no idea why balloons show up every time.
Hey, Adam, you've just said something that I got to put up there. That's one of my favorites, man. Brett Musburger.
He's
loved
good.
him. Yeah,
he's good. I don't know who gets to pick like the game, whether it's CBS or Fox. Like you got a Big 10 and Big 12.
Right. It'll just basically be the same thing that it is now, but they'll just share with Fox instead of ESPN.
Yeah, like right now though, CBS gets the first pick, and then ESPN takes everything else. I'm kind of curious what'll happen.
I hope they get to do Iowa, Minnesota.
That was Iowa's only other loss this year.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that one. Barn burner at like 7-10,
12-10.
Was it 12-10?
12.
And a driving snow.
It was bad.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow we'll hear from Nick Saban.
Yep.
He'll talk about the team and practice. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised because this thing kind of fell out the way that we thought it would. And again, I'm going to put it back up on the screen so that you guys can see it. But really, the only movement was the playoff committee moved Ohio State back 4. And for some reason, Texas and Alabama are behind them. Would Ohio State be favored if they played on a neutral field against Texas or Alabama? I bet you they'd be favored over Texas, but not Alabama, I wouldn't think.
I would say Texas would be a pick. And I would say Bama would be -3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But I will say that like all the teams are more comparable this year than in previous years.
Right.
I'll give them that. It's harder. But there's still just some fundamental flaws in these rankings based on what's on paper. I get the eye test, but the eye test is far outweighing the paper resume right now.
Yeah. Well, tell everyone about your mortgage company and what you got going on.
Yeah, guys, I left the corporate world 1 year and 2 months ago to start my own mortgage company. So me and my team, we've helped over 10,000 families in my 13-year mortgage career. If you need to buy a home, if you're looking to refinance, you just want to talk about it, you want to get some ideas, you want to answer some questions, you want to make sure you got good advice, didn't get screwed, whatever, feel free to hit me up. For this weekend, we're going to add a little QR code over here, Mick, in the corner. And so everybody will be able to get an appraisal credit. You'll get a free appraisal if you come and do a loan with us, and we'll give you a lender credit we're going to do $1,800 for 18 national championships.
Oh,
so
there you go.
we're going to do that as well. So if anybody, like I said, website's there, that's literally my cell phone number. I answer, I text back, whatever. That's my cell phone number if you want to reach out, or there's my website. Would love to help. What people don't realize, even with higher rates right now than what we've had previous couple of years, 1 out of every 3 mortgage transactions right now is a refinance, because people are still wanting to trade in the lower rates, even though the rate may be higher, because you're getting rid of credit card debt that's 20, 25, 30% APR.
So how does that, so to explain that, you just you ball all that together?
Yeah. So just simple math. Let's say that you owe 300,000 or let's say 200,000 on your house, and your house is worth 400,000. Then you can get up to 80% of the value of your home. So 80% of 400 is 320. That's $120,000 of equity you could get in order to pay off other debt. Doesn't have to be that big of a scenario. It could be smaller. Like if you have houses worth 300,
right,
percent would be 240. You could get 40 grand out, 20 grand out, whatever you may need. But the point is, mortgage rates may be a little bit higher, but 1/3 of every transaction understands that it's better than 28% credit card debt. So we're not going to force you or push you one way or another. We're going to look at it and tell you what makes sense. And trust me, I've told people to stay put and not do anything. Even though I don't get a sale out of it, I still tell them, like,
right,
we have your best interest at heart. We're not going to try to trick you. So hope that helps. Would love to chat if you're in the market for something.
Yeah, and help me get my home and pay off one of my student loans as well, all in one day. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us again. We really appreciate it. Like and subscribe, share, tell your friends about the channel, and thank you for all the growth that you've helped us have. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be keeping an eye on everything going on with Alabama. I still think the bottom line for this team is beat Georgia. And then I think the rest will fall into place, because if they keep the SEC out of the college football playoff, there's going to be a revolt. Just remember that.
It'll be bad.
It would be bad.